Hello, thank you for joining me. So in this video I'd like to kind of get started with our configurations, design tables, and equations. In this video we're going to create a simple part and we're going to create two different configurations of that part. What we're going to do is we're going to consider the length of the part. It's going to be a 2-inch and a 3-inch part, and then we're going to go from there. So our 2-inch part is, the way we're going to measure this is going to be a distance between two holes on that length. So let's go ahead and get started. It's always a good idea to pick the appropriate plane that you want to draw in. So I know that my length is going to be related to the front plane, the profile of that. So we're going to go ahead and sketch on that. I want to make sure, just for my class's benefit too, you want to make sure that when we draw these, our sketch out, that we do this with symmetry in mind. We want to take in consideration where the origin is, so that the planes that are going to be associated with the origin are going to be in the part, embedded in the part, hopefully in the middle of the part. So let's do this. We're going to go to sketch, and we're going to start with just a simple hole, and we're going to start right in the origin and draw that hole out. And the hole is going to be 4/10 of an inch, 40 thousandths of an inch, so we're going to type in 0.4. Probably bring that dimension a little bit lower, and then we're going to draw a slot. Center point, not a center point slot, but we're going to draw a straight slot. And we're going to start from 1 point, draw that out a certain distance, and this the dimension is going to be about 2 inches, as we mentioned before. And we're going to draw that up like that. Put in the appropriate dimensions on this. Our radius on this is going to be 1/2 inch. That should lock it into place until or after we put a dimension on that. So that should be where we want. So we want a 2-inch spread between the hole, which is going to be represented by that circle there, at 4/10 of an inch diameter, and a radius of 1/2 inch here with tangent edges on that. So that should be in pretty good shape. So remember that the slot tool automatically takes in consideration some of the elements that we would like to have in there. For instance, the tangential relationship between this curve here and that line, and that line and the curve over here, and so on and so forth. It's all set up for us and ready to go. So let's go ahead and rebuild that. Let's go to our sketch phone, because we're going to borrow this. We're going to go ahead and do that in two different features. We're going to do an extrude boss base. We're going to do a mid-plane extrusion on that. We're going to make that 1/4 inch. And we're going to go to selected contours. I like using selected contours in a situation like this. We're going to select, we can either select two things. We can select the region on the inside or the contour on the outside. If we select the contour on the outside, it selects everything. We don't select two things. So it selects everything that's within that contour. And then we're going to go to check mark. I like to label my elements here. It's just good practice. So we're going to call that base. And then while we're here, we're going to go ahead and borrow that sketch number 1. Go back to one of our features, and this one's going to be extrude cut. And we're going to also make that mid-plane. And 1/4 inch is going to be appropriate. Select the contours, and we're now going to select that circle. And it's just going to do that circle. And we're going to call that base and then hole. So it's a real simple part, but the desire here, since I put the origin over here and put the rest of the part over here, is I'm going to make it grow from that hole off in this direction. So there's going to be a couple things we're going to be doing with our configuration. We're going to make the configuration longer by altering that 2-inch dimension here, and we're going to put in a hole feature in here, a linear pattern with that hole, and we're going to multiply that through too. So one thing you want to keep in mind when you're doing a linear pattern, you want to make sure that you have two different features for that pattern. You don't want to make one single feature, with the base and a hole in it, which we could have done before. We wouldn't have been able to take that hole and actually do something with it. We would actually take the part as it looks right now and actually multiply that over and probably give us a result that we really didn't want. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and put in our linear pattern. Direction 1, I'm going to go ahead and click on that edge, make sure the arrow is pointing in the right direction. We're not going to do a direction 2, but we're going to click in the features pattern, which is going to be that hole. And we're going to make the distance apart from that hole. Since that's going to be 2 inches, we're going to make it 1 inch. And that should give us elements, 3 elements altogether. Green check mark. So there's our part so far. We have a 2-inch part with 3 holes. So let's go to our configuration. Let's go ahead and start our configuration. So one thing I like to do with the existing configuration is go ahead and rename that. So if I go to properties, I'm going to call that 3-hole, or we could just make that 2-inch. 2-inch might be a little bit easier to follow. And for the description, I'm going to type in 2, but this time we're going to capitalize that so it looks a little bit different. Both of these elements are going to appear in our design table. So we're going to go to a green check mark over here. And now we're going to add a configuration. So add configuration, the way we do this, if you didn't catch that, sorry about the rooster. We're going to right click on that and go to add configuration. We're going to make that 3-inch. Make that lowercase. And we're going to make it uppercase in the description just in case we want to import this later into a design table or into a drawing. We want to make sure everything's capitalized for that. So 3, it's going to be 3-inch. We're going to make that capitalized. And green check mark. So one thing you'll notice about configurations, nothing's changed. We haven't really done any change. We just made a duplicate of the part. It's already at 2 inches, the spread between the holes, between the 3 holes. These roosters. And at 3-inch, we're going to make a change to that. So there's a couple things we're going to change to that. First of all, we're going to make the base a little bit bigger. So we're going to right-click on the sketch one and go to that sketch element, and we're going to right-click in this dimension, and we're going to tell it to configure that dimension, or, which is the old way of doing it for 2011 and before. But if we actually click on that, 2012 gives us this new drop-down menu over here that's consistent with the value of our dimension we're going to put in there. We're going to pull that down. We're going to say for this configuration only. Or we can specify the configuration. If we want to go to specify configuration, we're going to make sure that we're going to choose the 3-inch one. And then we're going to go to OK. But before we change that, before we close it out, we actually are going to make that 3. So green check mark. So now we have a 3-inch configuration and a 2-inch configuration. So there's our 2-inch. And there's our 3-inch. What hasn't changed here is the value of the holes. So I'm going to save that for the next film so I can go ahead and close this one out. And we're going to change the value of the holes in the next one and show you how that works within the configuration environment.